Matt Berkey sparks interest in the poker community once again with his deep PCA run, and he's played a couple hands. We're going to do a couple of them, starting with this one today, where Matt Berkey gets himself in a weird, tough spot against a massive chip stack of Tommy Nguyen with 43 remaining in the PCA. We usually just see Matt playing cash games, but this is tournament Matt Berkey, so maybe it's a little bit different. It's going to be fun.
It's definitely going to be fun, and for you to know, Tommy Nguyen isn't just a guy. He's the guy who won the 2018 World Series of Poker Monster Stack for over $1 million. This guy is used to going deep in huge events with lots of players and being very, very successful. He's got no issues, no problems here. And this is just going to be a fun, good hand.
It's a fun, good hand, and that's why it was suggested by all of these people on Twitter, of course. Now, if you have a suggestion, you better know what to do, and if you don't, now is how you learn. Use this Twitter address, include a YouTube link, and if it's not just one hand, you need to timestamp the puppy.
Yeah, please do all those things.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we have to give a shout out to Nitrogen Sports Poker, the guys who keep the lights on around here. At the end of every month, we have our special Poker Guys tournament on Nitrogen Sports Poker because it's an online poker site, of course. And if you use the link in the description of this podcast, video, podcast, who cares? If you use the link in the description, you get access to that tournament. And of course, they guarantee 1,000 buy-ins for the tournament every month. Guess what? There's like 80 people who play, meaning there's a 900 buy-in overlay every single month. You have to get in there and get playing.
Yeah, you got to use the link and also play those casino games and sports bet. It's not called Nitrogen Sports for no reason, but also get you some poker on there.
Surprised they let me in this one.
Queen 10 suited for Tommy. Simon Dedman folds the button. Matt Berkey defends his big blind with nines.
Yeah, super strong hand to have here. But of course, super deep stack. Just a quick call. Ooh, daddy. And Nguyen has the spades.
Unbelievable. It's the second time this has happened in about 4 hands.
Now, this is going to be pretty interesting because, you know, oftentimes on boards where the aggressor flops you know, sort of a flush draw, the other opponent would have a set. You could really see the opponent kind of barrel off, but on a paired ace-ace board, you know, Nguyen isn't necessarily always going to blast away. He's never going to expect, you know, Berkey to fold an ace, especially with how sticky, you know, Matt is. He's not really going to fold a 9 on a lot of turns. So I wonder if Nguyen is going to elect to, and of course, big Berkey with the raise. Love this.
Yeah, C-bet of 17K from Tommy Nguyen. Matt Berkey check raises to 60K with a full house.
Yeah, I think this is a great texture and great situation to do this. You know, because Nguyen is just not going to barrel off on this board. He's either going to have an ace and continue, or he's going to have a hand like, you know, 10s through kings and decide to continue, or he's going to flush draws and continue, or he's going to have his air that probably wouldn't have barreled. So you just try to start getting money in now, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
So Nguyen with 2% equity needs running cards to make a straight or royal flush.
Great little bit brick for Berkey because it actually gives Nguyen more equity. But the question is, because Berkey is going to think more often than not, Nguyen is going to have an ace than a flush draw, Berkey might go on the bigger side. Ooh, interesting. Okay. You know, I'm not going to try predicting what Berkey's going to do because he's, you know, he's on his own island. I'm telling you. But if I were to try to analyze it, I mean, you know, that would be a scary card from the, you know, if Berkey was check raising and, you know, raggy ace doesn't want to necessarily go broke. But of course, we know he's loaded and he is inducing the bluff, drawing dead.
Nguyen makes it 85,000.
Now, I would not expect a check raise from Berkey. But I'm only saying that just so that he can prove me wrong, because I would love for that to happen. like he's counting out calling chips.
It feels almost unfair for Matt Berkey to have such a strong hand. You've seen many breakdowns that we've done of Matt Berkey. He never has it.
No.
He almost never has it. And so when he has it, it's like nobody's going to believe him. I don't blame Tommy Nguyen for calling the check raise on the flop. Let's talk about that check raise on the flop, though. Should Berkey be check raising this flop?
There's lots of good reasons to check raise, namely Tommy Nguyen opens +1. He's got a strong range. On this board, he's pretty binary too, where he's probably going to be checking back non-aces and non-hands that improve on the turn anyway. So I like check raising here. Every time Tommy Nguyen has an ace, Berkey can play a huge pot against him, which is great. Or a flush draw by that matter. When Tommy Nguyen doesn't have it, he's often not going to put more chips in the pot anyway, or very few chips in the pot. So I like fast playing this to try and play a huge pot right now.
I agree with those points in a sample size of 1 when we're talking about just this hand.
Yeah.
But from a holistic viewpoint, Berkey shouldn't really have that many check raises on this flop, which is a reason not to check raise. It's kind of a weird spot to have a check raise, right? Like, is he going to check raise ace deuce? Maybe Matt Berkey is. I don't know.
I
But
hope not.
That feels really bad. We've seen Matt Berkey do really weird things. We've seen
Yeah.
him check raise top pair against Dan Smith with a 5 kicker in a spot where he ended up doing some weird stuff in the end. He does a lot of weird stuff, so maybe Berkey's check raising range for value is more expansive than most players. But if you think about the big blind calling range that Berkey has, he shouldn't have much of a check raising range at all, except for maybe 9s full and ace 9. Maybe sometimes he shows up with ace queen and decides that's a check raise. But that's all very ambitious. It feels like most players won't have a check raising range here.
I mean, that's probably true. Berkey probably has some flush draws, though, as well, and maybe even a little bit of just plain pure air once in a while as a check raise. I'm not sure. He's Berkey. He does some weird stuff. If that's the case, then pocket nines feel squarely in the value part of the check raise range. And it's nice because you're Matt Berkey. You get to tell a, quote, bad story, like how it's so hard for you to have it, Matt.
Yeah.
And but you do have it. Like, this is kind of a dream.
And of course, Tommy is obligated to call with the flush draw, which is a disaster for him. We get to the turn, and Berkey decides to check, which is a bit of an unorthodox decision upon first inspection. Jonathan, I know you like the decision, though.
I do. I like it a lot, and mainly because Tommy has a lot of ace-king and pocket kings in his range right now, and if Tommy has other big aces, namely like ace-queen or ace-jack, maybe even ace-10, he's probably going to bet if we check to him anyway.
I disagree with that.
Really? You don't think he's going to try and charge the flush draw? I think he really might.
He might, but I don't. I know if I were Tommy, I wouldn't bet ace-10. If I got
Okay,
check raised
fine.
on this flop, and then I got check to on this turn.
How about ace-queen, though?
It's close.
I think I would guess most players are betting ace-queen most of the time here.
Okay, maybe. Maybe. I don't love betting it, but
Okay.
maybe he is. Should he be betting the hand that he has, though?
That's a really interesting question. Berkey generally either has complete give-ups or very strong hands here, right? He almost never has flush draws.
No, he can't really have a flush draw, because usually if he's going to check raise that flop, it's going to be a low flush draw most of the time because he doesn't have any showdown value. He's going to continue with those hands a lot of the time on the turn. So Tommy can't be putting him on a lower flush draw too often. Now, if he has a lower flush draw and he decided to check, he might even fold on this card. It's possible, because it's a really bad situation for a low flush draw right now. I don't know if there's much value in Tommy's bet, except for trying to tell a story against a weirdly played like ace-7 type hand that Berkey has, trying to say I have a bigger ace.
That's tough to successfully get away with. It's possible Berkey maybe sometimes even just has a 9. He is Berkey. If that's the case, this is probably going to work a lot, which is good.
I don't know about that, though.
The other thing that this could accomplish is not getting bluffed on the river. So that way, if Berkey were to have also a flush draw and it goes check, check on the turn, Berkey may feel obligated to bet the river a lot of the time with his no showdown hand. And Tommy, if it bricks out, just will fold, and then he loses a pot he otherwise would have won. And let's not forget, Tommy does have queen high, so he's bluffing at least.
Yeah, I mean, but ultimately, I just don't like the bet. I don't think there's a lot of value in it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I like a check back too.
Oh my goodness.
So Nguyen thinks he just got there.
And Berkey has just about pot behind. So what do you do if you're Nguyen's shoes here? We should expect to see a Berkey check.
He does check. Do you think Nguyen's going to shove on him?
I think there is a realm where he actually just bets something like between 160 and maybe 240. And then maybe makes a ridiculous hero fold if he gets shoved on, but Berkey's not always shoving on this run out. Of course, we see that Nguyen has a flush, but Nguyen also has ace-king here a lot, ace-jack. So I think that Berkey might just call this bet. Because he also knows that Win should fold some flushes when he checks shove. So I think Matt's probably just going to call.
Good news for you, I beat nothing.
Wrong.
Bad news for me is I have a really good hand.
It's a bad river for you then, huh?
What's that?
A bad river for you to hero call then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, at best case scenario, I'm definitely gonna need time banks.
So Berkey's actually considering folding
Use
here.
away,
This
my
is what we
friend.
were talking about here is that, you know, because of the line Win is taking here, when Win gets check raised on the ace-ace-9 and then continues and bets the king, Win is trying to say, you know, I have ace-jack, ace-queen, ace-king. So Berkey's losing to ace-king. And then the jack comes in
Bet a size where I might be able to
of
just
spades. So if
be
Win
a
did have
hero.
ace-queen, he wouldn't be betting the jack. So he should have a full house here, a lot. And Berkey has the worst full house. So Berkey, I mean, we talked about how he wasn't going to check shove the river, and you know, that's clearly happening. But he's actually thinking about maybe folding because he's only beating bluffs and queen 10 of spades, really. But also some king 10 of spades. But the thing is the sizing on the turn, you know, Win sized up pretty big on the turn, and he wouldn't really do that with king 10 of spades. You know, king queen of spades. Probably bet a little smaller as sort of a block
I wanna beat
protection.
king, queen of spades and queen, 10 of spades.
Yeah. And he's folding.
Wow.
He folds the best hand.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, Tommy. I gotta pay you off, bro.
Holy cannolis! I could go for a cannoli right now.
Oh my God, cannolis.
That sounds pretty good. Any sort of Italian food. Send it on over to Poker Guys HQ. We'll eat it.
We're so hungry.
Anyway, this is quite a fold by Matt Berkey. The question is it correct? Because we can see the cards and it feels very, very wrong. And I'm sure when they were doing the live stream on YouTube, there were a bunch of people in the YouTube comments saying, Berkey's an idiot. I always knew he was a fish. He was going to fold the worst hand. How can he get pushed around like this? I don't know. I think maybe it's an okay fold, Jonathan.
I'll tell you what, at first blush, it does look like, oh man, you can't fold this, it's too strong, blah, blah, blah. But really, if you think about it, and by thinking about it, I mean saying, you sort of put together what hands are in Tommy's range that he's betting right here when Berkey checks the river, after having check called the turn, right? So Berkey doesn't have flushes anymore, right?
No.
Like, he would not have check called the turn with a flush draw. He would have bet the flush draw or check raised the turn
Most
with
of
a
the
flush
time,
draw.
absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
it's so rare for him to have a flush draw that way. So now if you think about what hands does Tommy have, well, it's a few flushes, but the question is how many, and then a bunch of full houses, and kind of nothing else. Because a spade comes on the river, I believe Tommy is checking back most of his aces, maybe all of them.
Yeah.
Maybe he's betting ace-queen.
He shouldn't, though.
Probably not.
I don't think he should bet
I think he's
ace-queen.
like quickly checking, even though it doesn't really make sense for Berkey to have a flush here. Ace-queen is just like, that's not a card you want to see. You're like, I hope I win. I might win. I probably win.
Another question we have to ask ourselves is, Berkey, is it possible for Tommy to have a bluff? That's what we first have to ask.
Right.
Because what we've done on our podcast is divided the value into hands Berkey beats and hands he doesn't. But can Tommy have a bluff? And I think based on the flop, it's really hard for Tommy to have a bluff. What does he have, king, queen of diamonds that he's turning into a bluff? I don't think so.
I mean, he would have to have sort of two cards that decided not to fold on the flop because they're in position because it's Matt Berkey check raising him on a polarized board, and then decide to just really go for it. That's kind of the only way he shows up with a bluff when all is said and done.
And some players will do that, but I mean, when they go for that and they put that much at risk, just kind of randomly, you know, sometimes you just got to say, go for it, you get the pot, you know, you win this time.
Also, we're this late in the PCA. Berkey's probably played with Win for a fair amount at this table, or in general. Win won the Monster Stack in 2018. He's not a nobody or anything like that. Berkey may know a few things about him. Berkey probably has a relatively good sense if Win's got this play in him or very much of the time in him. If the frequency is very low, you just don't really worry about it. You can almost discount it and ask yourself, how many full houses and how many flushes does he have? Because that's all that really matters with just the tiniest bit of air.
Right, because how can he have air? It's so hard.
Really hard.
So let's ask about the flushes. The thing is, Win opened +1, and we thought it was even a little bit loose that he opened queen 10 of spades. Now,
Yeah.
he did start with 140 blinds, so that makes some sense. It's possible he's opening 7-8 of spades.
Yeah.
But he's not opening like small 2-gappers or 1-gappers, I don't think. I wouldn't imagine.
I don't think so
I mean,
either.
if we
It's
can
hard
give
to
him
know.
if we can give him all of those things change, but we're going to assign more of a traditional range here, and that ends up being just about 4 or 5 potential flushes. We did the math on our podcast. There are 17 easily had full houses in Tommy's range. And guess what? Matt Berkey has the worst full house on the board. So 17 versus 4, he's not getting a good enough price. He's getting 3-1. It's not good enough. I think it's a good fold by Matt Berkey.
I think it is too, even though it sucks that he was wrong, because, you know, man, like, you can win the PCA when you make these calls, and you're right, but I think Berkey's right to make the fold. By the way, they have a little interchange after Wynn bets, and Wynn looks completely comfortable and at ease when he's asking if Berkey's going to make a hero call. If Berkey's trying to use any physical tells, I don't know if he is, he might then assign even less of a bluffing range. Like, if he gave him any bluffs at all, he's like, well, I really don't think he's bluffing now. And then the only question is can I beat any value, or how much value can I beat? The answer is almost none.
You can beat a little bit of it, but maybe you shouldn't even be able to. I don't know if Berkey's expecting that Tommy's going to be betting his flush draws on the turn in the first place.
Maybe
that
not.
could eliminate some. Where all of the better full houses make perfect sense. Ace-King makes perfect sense. Ace-Jack makes at least some sense. Jonathan would bet it on the turn. I wouldn't necessarily, but maybe Tommy Wynn would. You know, so hands like King-King makes tons of sense.
Oh, yeah.
Jack-Jack's the only one that doesn't really make any sense. Ace-9 makes sense as well. There's too many full houses that make sense. The flush draws are harder to have. I like the fold, even though it looks wrong.
I mean, I think a good rule of thumb for something like this is this. If you are in a spot on the river and your opponent bets, and you're aware you can beat some of your opponent's range, but only the very bottom of it, you better be getting an amazing price, or they better have a huge amount of bluffs for it to make sense to call. It was the fold that launched 1,000 ships. Maybe. I mean, I don't really know.
1,000 YouTube comments.
Yeah, for sure, and 1,000 tweets. Matt Berkey folding the full house on the river incorrectly, as it turns out. But what do you think? Do you think this actually was a good fold? We do. We like the fold. But maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're wrong about how many bluffs Tommy Wynn has. Maybe Tommy Wynn has a lot more flushes he's going to bet as well. What do you think about the way this hand played out from both players' perspectives? We're really looking forward to seeing what you have to say. Let us know in the comments.
Do you guys like fresh things? Like, fresh squeezed orange juice is better than orange juice from concentrate, right?
Of course.
Well, how about a fresh playlist?
Ooh.
A Matt Berkey playlist,
Ooh.
freshly minted. Click right up here to check out our new Matt Berkey playlist.
I like that. And of course, twice a week we have a fresh new podcast for you. That's where we spend 45 minutes breaking down one hand. One single hand. We did it for this hand as well. So instead of getting 12 minutes of analysis or so, you can get a full 40 minutes. That's where we go down every single branch of the decision tree. Have a good time doing it. It's actually a lot of fun. We highly encourage you to check it out. It's called The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys. It's available on all your favorite podcast apps.
Also, make sure you subscribe to this video. And if you haven't created like 6 or 7 other accounts to subscribe to the video with, start doing that too.